Remember Extinction Rebellion? I'm like, what a set of bastards. But at the same time, I'm like, that trick they pull, somewhere it's like setting off a nuclear weapon. What would happen if a nuclear weapon went off? Well, all the traffic would stop, wouldn't it? Something like that. You know, we sat there for hours like, what the fuck are we going to do? All bets are off. So it's like, you look at that and you say, those are like war tactics they use. They're war tactics. They're a way of causing a lot of people suffering. And they're doing it because they want insulation to be installed in like loads of council houses. They want a meaningful statement by the government they want, and they were willing to do that. And it's like, you'll never get through to people like that until something real pops up, and then something real pops up, and they're all at sixes and sevens like, what about our campaign to get the insulation done? And it's like, diesel is up to about £1.80 a litre, and it's never coming down in price. And our government have become a propaganda machine for the Ukrainians. They appear to have themselves a proper lunatic running the show, who's just saying anything that pops into his head pretty much based on half of what he's heard. And they're all going along with it. So it's a matter of, okay, that trick you do with stopping the traffic, it's like, would you like to do it again? What? Yes, but this time have a meaningful cause for it. Bring our government down, please. Use that method to bring our government down. It's like, because I was afraid, I knew they wouldn't do anything militarily. I just knew it for an absolute fact that they weren't going doing anything militarily. But this gap where they're not doing anything about Russia. It's just a matter of you take it. But these moves they made to be seen to be doing something about it is a self-inflicted wound. It's like someone says sanction, you're like, here we go. Because it really means that a load of two-party contracts are being broken. They don't get paid, we don't get our oil. Sanctions, you say, right, that's to punish your own people who are in business with their people. And if you're dealing and talking about commodity trading, you're fucking with everyone in the world when you sanction them to punish them. And it's a matter of their supply chain's not what our supply chain is. What? Well, they've got energy. They've got food. They can sort that out for themselves. It's like they're more self-sufficient than we are. We're codependent on everyone else. If you start messing around, oh, we're going to sanction them. What are you going to do? Oh, we're going to start we're not going to buy your commodities from you anymore. And then the best one of the lot is like Roman Abramovich, an Israeli citizen. About that. An Israeli citizen. An individual who's got property rights. But apparently he hasn't got property rights anymore because he's Russian. So it's like, if Roman Abramovich has got no property rights, well, neither of me are you. Not really. If the government can just say one day, we don't like you because you're of this clan, you no longer get to, basically your property is no longer yours. We're stealing your stuff because of who you are. It's like, that's what Jews would expect Nazis to do, isn't it? And it's weird when you come to Nazis, because it's like every proper European fucking weirdo nationalist, like the SJWs on the other side, the open racist white supremacist types, it's like they've got a home. Had eyes on loads of them for years in the old internet circles, and it's like they've got an audience, they've got a home. Where's their home? Oh, Eastern Europe. Really? Yeah. So where's the home of Holocaust denialism? You'd have asked me this a month ago. I'd have told you. I'd have gone, Ukraine. Really? Oh, yeah. The home of Holocaust denialism. I can go and just paraphrase that video I made all those years ago when I lost like a third of my subscribers for making one video, and it was, hey, you know the Holocaust happened? What? And then I went to the cases to talk about the Ukraine and all the people who willingly took part in it and never saw any justice. And then when the communists came along, they saw these guys as being dangerous to them as well and decided, I'll tell you something about these guys. They know they get the job done. They went back to being coppers, working for the council. They went straight from Jew killing and helping the Nazis to being members of the Communist Party. Like, sign me up. What are you? Well, we're muscle. We were working for the Germans. We were doing the... They didn't like the fact that killing the Jews used to give their soldiers PTSD. Some of them felt bad about it, so they give us the job. And we're quite happy to do it. Really? It's like, oh yeah, all those people walked away, and the home of Holocaust denial is Ukraine. Lost myself a lot of subs for pointing to the Holocaust denialism that exists in that place and how deep it goes. And it's like, if you think of those people now, it's like their children are now boomers. Their grandchildren are like my age, 45. It's like they got away with it. And it's like, if you've done things like that, you're fucked up. And there's no way you can't be fucked up, so your kids are fucked up too. And it's like, oh, my old granddad, we love him, but he used to beat us something senseless when he was drunk. Well, he went through some bad experiences during the war. And it's like, you've got so many of these old goats who took part in fuck shit during the war. It's that thing I pointed to as to where I actually talking on this topic. I was able to like make a connection with J. Michael Straczynski, because that's what his father was. It's like everyone should read that guy's book about being brought up by a Nazi war criminal. What was he? Well, he was a Russian kid, but he was in Poland. And he was friendly with the Nazis because he was like an American Russian. And he was friendly with the Nazis, and they took him under his wing, and they went to go and round up some Jews to shoot them, and 15-year-old kid died for a laugh. Let him be the guy who operated the machine gun. And he talks about his terrible war history and all the secrets and all that he deserves sympathy for all the shit he went through. And it's like, what did he go through? He massacred a lot of Jews and he enjoyed it. And he used to try and recreate a situation where he was allowed to punish whenever chance he got, wherever situation he was. How did that manifest itself? It's like, well, the guy was a professional fraudster and conman. Moved and dragged his family from place to place, used to get a great deal of satisfaction and enjoyment by letting his son have pets. And then, oh, I've accidentally killed your dog. Oh, I've accidentally killed your cat. Oh, sorry about that. It's like there was that guy writing that book. It's like, I know now there was something very off about my grandma, and there was something very off about my father, and years of asking all the right questions to the right people, and then actually finding his father in history made it all clear as to say the dirty secret he had, which he'd seen in his childhood relatives use it against him to drive him mad, as to where the guy's sister had a big hold over him, his evil dad. And that was, she knew what he did. She'd utter the name of the place and he'd be incandescent, and she'd be like, no, shut the fuck up. I make the case as to say there's, in certain parts of the world, there's loads of people like that. You've likely gone on to have like 15 and 16 grandchildren and the like. You think they've turned out right? You think that's a stable place in view of the fact that all these, like, horrible fucking murdering bastards got away with it, went back to being cops. Like, wow, walking in the Ukraine, retool the cops into murderers, into hatchet men assassins. Keep them pissed all day. Ukraine is the home of that. Tell you what, I've never had a backlash on the internet from when I got to talking about that. I saw the wet work that went on in that country during the Second World War, and I'm talking about it as if, well, this is just history, isn't it? You can go away and find out about this. And the number of people who were absolutely furious at me for saying it. Because Holocaust denial was part of their religion. And I'm like, wow, that triggered a few, didn't it? Some deep old wounds there, some things we can't touch, some things we can't go near, some things you don't like people talking about. And these were the right, these were the far right. The far right, they have their own versions of snowflakes. They have the human beings too. They're damaged people. You just have to press different buttons to trigger them. And didn't I just step on one when I got to talking about the sort of the never-ending Nazi influence over the Ukraine? Excuse me? Yeah, he just changed his hat. And the Nazis are driven out, it just calls, you just call me comrade, isn't it? These are dangerous men who can get the job done. They're a bag of shit to hold. Talking of, as mentioned, like tactics of war, like stopping the traffic. There's one that's far worse than that. There's something that should be seen as a war crime and isn't and won't be, right? The worst sin or war crime is when you deliberately turn your cities into bags of shit to hold, ensuring that they become humanitarian disasters. How do you turn a city into a bag of shit? You panic its population so it runs. Those who can afford to run and are the most neurotic, they run and they become a problem. They become a logistics problem. They no longer become responsible for feeding and clothing themselves. They themselves become bags of shit to hold. How do you make the whole place become a bag of shit to hold? You abandon it with no power, no water, and leave it undefended from people who will loot it and destroy it. It's criminal element that still live in the new that are now actually living in a world that better suits their need and that they're better adapted to. They will destroy the place and turn it into a bag of shit. It's better if you're going to surrender because you can't win, because you're not getting the international support, it's better to not traumatise your own people and turn the country into a bag of shit to hold. So every city that's, let's say, taken off the map, I'll not call it liberated, I'll not call it won, I'll say taken off the map. For every city that's taken off the map, you've now got yourself a humanitarian, criminal, looting crisis. And you can call that resistance, can't you? If it suits you for it to be called that. You could let criminals take the place to take the part in that. Think of a city that's half deserted in the real world, how much wealth is in that place of the things that people couldn't take with them. Or didn't take with them. It's like criminals are scrapping these places. And it'll be called resistance. It's like the dirtiest tactic of all is to panic your population into destroying their own city. So the place is no longer defended by anyone, there's no rule of law, and everyone who had the means to has run. And they've taken the money with them, and what are they going to do on the way with that money? They're going to spend it. And at the same time, there's going to be people out in the world like that. Yeah, the price is now $1,000. The price is now 500. The price is now 1,000. Oh, yes, we can get you across the border. How much? 10 grand each. Excuse me? Well, you know, big fucking line of people. So in that lawless movement of people, you create all kinds of lawless marketplaces. And you're cheering it on. It's like, you see, brave people on their way out. It's like, right, excuse me. Brave guy from wherever heads off to Ukraine, I'm going to fight, I'm going to help defend Ukraine, turns up and it's like, I'm here to fight. Excuse me? Yes, where are my digs? Digs? Yeah, and where's the mess tent? Excuse me? It's like, you're just giving them another mouth to feed. I'm going to go over and fight. And it's like, in view of the tactics that have been deployed, right? In my mind, in my imagination, a general. I'm not going anywhere near those cities. I don't want to take them. Excuse me? Why? Because the bags of shit to hold. It's like, as soon as we take that, we're going to be on the hook for feeding all these fucking people. If you make the bag of shit to hold part of your plan, right? Like, oh, the people have all run. Okay, bag of shit to hold, no power, everything's stinking rotten, fucking the water's out, loads of brownouts, probably a lot of work for a lot of people who've now left just to get the electricity back on. We ain't got the guys with us to do that. We'll have to bring them in. Oh, we've got them, but we're not risking them getting killed as saboteurs. So it's like, right, don't fucking go there. Excuse me? Well, yeah, if we don't take the place, it's still the government's responsibility. Let them have it. So you just don't go there. You don't move in. You go and take what's valuable. It's like that strategy, right, that looks like it's what's the only thing that's on the table is for the US and the Western world to be holding this bag of shit relief effort while the Russians get on with their mission. Might seem like a clever game to play that as to, right, we can turn these cities into sacks of shit. You see, someone said, why the scorched earth tactics from Putin? Is there any need? I'm like, no, they're the Ukraine's tactics. The Ukraine are using a scorched earth tactic. How? Why? Because they've evacuated most of the population out of all these places and created millions of refugees. That's a scorched earth tactic. And who's that? That's the government causing an almighty panic. That fucking arsehole when he said, you've heard of Chernobyl? Well, this could be like Chernobyl times 10. I'm like, that's something out of Team America, isn't it? It's bad dialogue. It's just bad dialogue. It's supposed to be funny. And it's coming out of his mouth. And then you've got it where Biden gives a speech saying Russia tried to cause a nuclear meltdown. I'm like, days later, nah. Put it in terms like this. I've been to Sellafield, right? Driven up there for a job. And I went and had a right good look at it. I found a spot as to where you could get quite close to it and you could get a good bloody view of it on like a right angle of it. And it's like, that's an incredibly big place. It's like, wow, this is big. It's like, to be that up close to it, it's like, Jesus, this is the largest building I've ever seen. Probably is. That I've been that close to. Like, you think a couple of tank shells can destroy this? Like, or even, put it at risk. It's like, what is it made of? Fucking paper. What is it made? Paper? It's like, are you kidding me? But Joe Biden's saying, he's telling people, they tried to cause a nuclear meltdown. It's like, you know what this is? Fantasy being rebroadcast as truth. Who talks like that? There was a Luke Harding who is crazy, full of shit, fantasies, should not be right, should not be a journalist, should be some kind of fiction writer. Works for The Guardian. He's got a piece today in The Guardian calling what Russia's doing genocide. A hospital's been hit with a shell rocket. It's like, when you try to bait your enemy into tank traps, they just don't turn up. Just don't turn up. But they've got the means to hit you from miles away, and the more you ask them to hit you from miles away, the less accurate the weapons get. It's like, war is rolling atrocity. There's no right or wrong to it. It's atrocity, it's atrocity, it's atrocity, it's atrocity, atrocity. Oh, the longer it goes on, the more atrocity. You can't escape it. So as long as you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. No one signs up to be murdered in an ambush. So what do you expect? You're getting hit with standoff weapons like you're at war with Russia, and they don't want to kill you, but this is all you're leaving them with. Because they're not going to roll their tanks and let you blow them up with stingers because you've got javelins, because you've got javelins. They're not going to roll in with their helicopters because they know you've got loads of stingers and things. And now you've let it be known they don't know exactly where all these weapons are, but they know they've been distributed. So it's a matter of, well, we'd be foolish to lose aircraft to these weapons. Let's not give them anything to shoot at. And that's your war. A humanitarian crisis. The humanitarian crisis be what the Ukraine government has opposed and what appears that its tactics are developing as with now doing its best to be seen to be doing something. I think they're probably losing very badly that war. There's no way for them. They've got no path to victory, so you shouldn't be fighting. If you can't win, you should not fight. Tell you something, brave rearguard actions, right? It just creates martyrs. And that's well, seriously, it's like martyrdom. That's an interesting old concept, isn't it? Keep the dream alive. Insane. Who in the right mind would be backing the Ukrainians right now? And to my mind, it's nobody. And to my mind, an alarming number of people have completely lost their fucking heads over this. Alarming number. Like, lost their minds over it. And now, nuclear ping pong started. the new COVID variant being the nuclear variant, we're managing to have the boomers spew their nightmares into the world, and it be, you know what, there's many an election this year coming in many a place, and there's many a movement to send the government fucking packing locally, regionally, nationally. And they're afraid, and they haven't got a leg to stand on, and they can't compete with their opposition. So they're trying to silence them. And they're so desperate to stay in power, they'll give you World War III to stay in power. This is all about individuals. What if we're not in power? Like, that be the end of the world for them, so it's okay that it's the end of the world for everybody else as well. It's like, there are people in this world, and I know this, and this is why I do what I do, right? Who'd have everyone in the world dead so no one could know their secrets. That individual would destroy the world to avoid criticism. It's like, it's out there. And then you get it where this days when they talk about what's strong, what's admirable, and it's like, you know, the number of people who see people who won't compromise and always double down, see them as being strong, and it's like, no, that's cop out, that's weak. You don't have to prove you're wrong being stubborn. So it's like they don't listen to anyone. Why? Too stubborn. And that stubborn, stick at it thing, having jumped to the wrong conclusion, oh, that's a strength. Those are the good people who do that. So as long as we don't know how to identify strength, wisdom, as long as we're being lied to, gaslit by people, and then when they get caught wrong, because they always get caught wrong, they say, "Aren't we clever? We controlled you, we tricked you. Aren't we clever? Behavioural science unit, aren't we clever?" It's like, no, you're just abusing people. No, you're just fucking with people's lives. And it'd be a matter of, there has to be a certain push come to shove when, see, this is a thing, where it comes to this subject, it's like nothing I've seen before. Because once upon a time, you knew you could find allies when you talked about the anti-war movement, right? Loads of them guys are sellouts who helped actually played ball in precipitating this war. Certain anti-war people. But it's like, I find myself on the same side and I'm not just someone who follows, you know, I've been around long enough giving my own opinion for people to respect that I do have my own opinion. And my opinion is, so to press, as far as I'm concerned, anyone now who's fallen on the side as to say, stop the war, surrender. Ukraine, stop fighting. It's like, what you're taking part in is evil, and as evil as what the Russians are doing. It's like, you've had your population flee, and what's Putin want? What's he demanded? Right, the denazification of the Ukraine. What? Yeah, oh yeah. the denazification, that's probably a good idea. It's like, why? Well, place is full of Nazis. What? It's like, yeah. It's like, those who aren't openly give it all that. What? Oh, yeah. They've got a real problem with history and hate that they've managed to suck into one place. And now they've been armed by the West. And it's like, when they eventually lose, they will turn on the West. They'll become Al-Qaeda. They won't turn on Russia because Russia would just fucking wipe them off the face of the earth if they were ever to show their ugly faces again. But the West won't. And we'll accept all these defeated fighters feeling like they were betrayed by the West in their great war against tyranny and evil, and they become a fucking problem for us, and we arm them. Well, like what? It's like, how do you come to that conclusion, John? It's like, that's what's happened in history every time the West has armed the mob. They don't bother to find out who these people are. They don't ask. They don't have anyone in their circles of people who might have some insight into what, the internet chatter amongst this side of the world is. It's like some fucking lies being told in this part of the world to cover some fucking dark histories, I'll tell you. And it's like Afghanistan be like the home of lies, and it be they put money into the pockets of families, of big families. They buy people off. They give people big non-jobs, as to say, right, we can trust these people, they're clever. It's like Biden, he's someone they've given money to. He's had a relationship with them. He's taken their money. And they're like, this guy's perfect for our needs. Why? Because he won't do anything. He's a dumbass. It's like, we can run him ragged. We can tell him anything. We can trick him. He believes us. We can have him. It's like, this guy, we want this guy. We back this guy. He's our guy. It's like Trump asks too many questions, mate. Trump have a mind to question. This guy, no. You don't give a fuck about any of that. Get him. Empty vessel, vacant lot. He's our guy. It's like, I can't believe the way the West are currently being plagued like fiddles by a fantasist lunatic. Because when you come out with things like, have you heard of Chernobyl? You tell the world there's going to be a nuclear meltdown, and then there isn't, because that's an absurd thing. I've seen Sellafield and gone, fucking hell, this is a big place, isn't it? Like, been taken aback by the size of it. Whitehaven, no one goes there. That's where that is. That's the roads to get there are shit. No one goes there. You get there and you're like, oh fuck me, this place really puts this place on the map, doesn't it? Wow, that's a big place. Oh, I can see where there's a town here that pretty much just staffs that. I get it now. You think a few shells is going to fucking cause a nuclear meltdown? It's like, is the place made of paper mache or what? And it's like, no. Is it made of anything that's like, could be considered in any conceivable way a dangerous or flammable material? It's like, no. What's the most heavily protected and shielded part of this building, and is the protection it provides only one way? Well, no, it's not like, it's shielded from what goes on inside and not outside. It's like there's certain properties to steel and fucking concrete. And so it's not really something that's under threat from a few shots from like rockets. And no, this place would take some fucking destroying. Like seriously take some destroying. You'd have to set about deliberately fucking with it with exactly the right kind of weapons to destroy it. You'd have to destroy a place like that, cause a nuclear meltdown, destroy its cooling system, accidentally destroy all its redundant systems, knock its power off and somehow destroy its internal power capabilities where it could keep itself running with generators and the like for probably a year or two. Part of a system. It's like the electrical side of it. It's a matter of, well, this place is a great big kind of dynamo, isn't it? It's like push comes to shove, we don't really need mains power. A little bit of it as a bit of a jump start, yeah. But this is a power station. It's like Biden gets up and says, they tried to cause a nuclear meltdown. No, they made some people shit their pants. They didn't try to cause a nuclear meltdown. If they'd have tried to cause a nuclear meltdown, they'd have gone in the place and sabotaged it. Or they'd have bombed the crap out of it with bigger planes than we've seen so far. What a load of fucking bullshit. But that story gets to Joe Biden and he reports it as fact. The Russians tried to cause a nuclear meltdown. It says it. It's like the tail's wagging the dog. Who's the tail? The government of Ukraine. They've got all the leverage because they're holding all the bags of shit. Leverage over the West. How rich do you think those fucking gangsters at top of that scam are going to get when all this fucking money starts rolling into that country? And you're giving it to them to distribute. You're talking about billions in aid. We're going to see the old situation where certain people amongst them are ending up with like pallets of dollars. We're going to see the pallets of dollars again, I think. How people get paid. Watch. Pallets of dollars. And it's like, who have you backed to do your fighting? Well, the right-wing paramilitary sort of thugs who we recruited or drew to this place in 2014 when we were recruiting mercs to help with our coup. And they just stayed because we put them on wages. The dangerous people to get the job done. Oh, those kind of people. Yeah, those kind of people. Well, they get the job done. It's like they're better off in our pocket than in prison. What? They're better off working for us than dead. It's like, who are you backing in the Ukraine? It's like, I've been following politics and I follow who the names are. A place like Ukraine, it's a matter of, well, it's shifting sand at any given time as to might be running that place, but they'll always say that the guy was democratically elected. It's like the guy who's elected now was elected on promises to make a reconciliation and peace with the Soviet Union, old Soviet Union, Russia. He got himself elected on the platform as to where he'd settle it down, he'd sort it out, and what did he do? Nothing. As soon as he got elected, he's like, there's nothing going on. Just put a new face on an old whore. It's like, you can't get past it, right? There was a thing about when the Taliban rolled in, right, in Afghanistan, how they just overwhelmed. And it was, they had the moral imperative. They had many a good reason to be doing what they were doing. And there'd be many, many sort of strands to this rope. There'd be many, many reasons as to why we're in every way right to drive the influence of the US out of this country. It's like, we've already done a really good deal with the Pakistanis and the Russians. This is going to work for everybody. Everyone's going to leave everyone the fuck alone, and we're all going to just do the business that we do. And they're not so bothered about this opium thing. They're not pretending to be at war with it in the same way. So it's like, this deal, everyone gets a piece of the action. Except for the people who believe in the government, of course. Us who work for a living, we're going to do okay. But everyone else, take your own chances, don't you? Create your own opportunities. Which is what people who are set up and okay for themselves always say. That's a human thing. Leave the people who fend for themselves. They've got the freedom. The freedom can be, if you haven't got the wherewithal, freedom to starve in the, public museum of your choice. Freedom to starve to death in the nicest parks. Freedom to starve to death on National Trust land. That's kind of freedom, really, if you believe in the government. If you're going to wait for someone to come along and fucking change your country, well, it's not going to happen. And it's like these guys in places like that who are already in business and they've got resources, they do okay. They're like, well, we'll make the place perfect for us to operate in now. And what does that mean? It means nothing gets written down and no one asks any questions. Russia's got the moral imperative to take the Ukraine back. So they won't stop fighting. If you look at it and you say everyone's telling lies, right? It's like, well, if it's Russian propaganda, they've been at it for a hell of a long time, let's say. No, there's some truth to what they're saying, right? You're talking about the people on the ground there being superstitious people, being people who draw from the past for power, being people who look backwards to look to the future. That's what that place is. So it's like, if you come with those meta reasons for taking Ukraine, right, well, their reasons for defending it are just meta too. Just fucking fictions, stories, versions of reality. So it's like, nah, if you weigh one against the other, if that is the game you wish to play, if that's the level that you wish to engage on, the psychological level, propaganda, if you're wanting to wage war on the psychological level, don't be too surprised when your enemy uses the same tactics against you and attacks you on a historical and psychological level as well. And it's like, if you use the tools of race war, why be surprised when someone picks up all those weapons you've left lying around and fucking throws them straight back at you? It's like, That's a racist country. Excuse me? Yes, it is. It's like, it's not, I often say it's like people seem to think of a European Ukraine. It's like Ukraine's mostly fields, you know. Really? Yeah, well, so's this fucking place. Only people who live in cities think the world's overpopulated. Guarantee you. But a lot of people live in cities, don't they? So you get the, is it or isn't it? Well, it's a matter of, well, no, it isn't. It's mostly fields. It's like, yeah, but you know, they're not growing anything on them. This is bad land for cultivation where I live. So it's like, really, there's no end to how many houses you could build within reason. It's still nearly mostly all fields, you know. As long as you're willing to build roads to carry the extra traffic and you're willing to upgrade the infrastructure by way of giving these people their electricity and it not being a strain on the system, if you're willing to put redundancies in place and put the infrastructure in, I'm happy for you to build any pocket of shit land around here. It would probably be a boon to the person who owned the shit land if it wasn't just land that the council hadn't just stolen. It'd be nice for someone to find out they own a patch of land thinking it's not really worth nothing, and then next thing come along some developer wants to, oh, I'd like to buy this land off you. It's like, really? I know people that's happened to. It's like so much bullshit in the world that if you just use your own sense and, hang on a minute, ask a few different people this very same question and talk to somebody who lives in like Lincolnshire. Somebody who lives on the east side of the country and say, do you think the world's overpopulated? And they'll be like this. Can you see another human? Look as far as you can see. Can you see another human being? No? Well, in my estimation, no, the world isn't overpopulated. There's loads of fucking room for them. You look at it and say, is there any sheep being raised on this ground? Why? Well, it's what it's good for. It's fucking shit. But sheep can have a decent life outside around here. Do you see any of that going on? No. Why? Well, there's no need. Other people can do it cheaper than you can do it around here. Why? Because there's no industry for it around here. There's no demand for that kind of stuff around here. Why is that? Well, there's no factories. Do you see any fucking spinning sheds around here anymore? No. So it's like, around here, that stuff's worth fuck all because it's textile industry that made it once upon a time viable isn't here anymore. So then it becomes a transportation job, and then it becomes, that ain't worth doing when we can buy them down south and they can just throw sheep on their shit ground and have it ready for market because the market's there. But if there were a need to expand industry, it'd be a matter of, you know, you see what I mean? It's like, there's loads of stuff that can be done. Loads of extras that could be thrown in if they were really serious about this. Like food and overpopulation. It's like, there's fuck all growing around here. Nothing. There's very little farming done of any kind at all. Why? So well, there's funny in the way that things work, because these days they're paid not to. What? It's like, yeah. So I reckon there's probably more money these days to be made and less trouble if you were just like someone who kept some prize bulls or something like that. and just sold the muck. And you keep doing your scientific experiments, getting them balls fucking. Making bigger balls, making, healthier looking balls, making good looking balls, and just selling the muck. You just attach some machine to them that fucking sucks them off. And just put the muck in a box, right, and put a sticker on it saying like fragile, and just send in. It's like, how much do you want for that pint of bull semen? And be like, 20 grand. Okay. And they'd be like, well, we can inseminate 200 bulls with this. And we know that his fucking stud is like, fucking balls like this. And so that's where money is. It's like there'd be factory places, like huge industrialised places these days that'd be making money raising beef. They'd have to have it down to a fine art to be able to make money at it. Jeepers. Overpopulated. Fuck. It's like this country's codependent, right? Totally on the rest of the world. Doesn't produce nearly enough food for itself. Doesn't produce nearly enough energy for itself. And then we start mouthing off, and the business partners, right, that we do, the people in the world we do business with, right, we don't do business with them anymore to punish them. And it hurts us worse because we need this stuff more than they do. It's just bad for business, man. This is war bad for business. This is war bad for business. No, and it's like, you'd be better off if you just fired fucking missiles at each other, or went in there guns blazing than right, we're having this perpetual endless standoff where we're making demands and we're criminalising everyone who does business with you. We are ending all of our action with you, and then it's like, but these are all two-party contracts. It's like, you're fucking yourself. And the business decisions, they're not things that some elected guys really even got the power to fuck with. So all of a sudden, the law's just gone to shit. And the government can just say, right, this is not allowed anymore. Excuse me? In view of the clowns we've got in power and the situation we found ourselves in, no one's willing to say it, but the right thing to do is for those that get it to set about in motion bringing our government down, to stop them aiding this war effort, this dirty fucking this dirty war of extermination that they're gonna manufacture by giving weapons to all these fucking psychos. This wholesale looting and gangsterism being called resistance. This flurry of daily bullshit from the fantasists in charge of the country. And these fucking far right wing armed Nazi lads in the street not going a bit too fucking far themselves. It's like, you're backing that, you're asking for it, it's war, and there's no fucking cops about, all bets are off. You're arming these people. It's like, I could tell you more about who these people likely are than you fucking know. And maybe, you know, I'm not, there's people tell you more than I could, but even someone who lacks the words and the education to be so, you know, eloquent, I could give you pause. I could tell you enough to make you think twice, as to say, whose side are you getting yourself in on here? Or do we have to operate in this Obama reality as to, well, it's always somebody else's fault when things go wrong? It's like, is that what we're dealing with now? I have questions, don't I? Serious questions about Obama. Is he an evil pimp warlord, right? Or was he just an actor who was absolutely, completely out of his depth and never actually had control over what the old deep state were doing? Maybe Obama is the ultimate empty vessel, nothing, do as you're told, total shill puppet. Or one way or another, he's still managed to corrupt the discourse when everybody adopted his act. It's like, that man surely must have something to say. Yeah, I'll put a challenge out to Obama, right? Put a challenge out to Obama, right? If you are the man you say you are, right, it means you're actually accountable for a hell of a lot of shit that's going down in the world, right? If you come out and say that the Ukrainian government should surrender to stop the bloodshed and negotiations need to start without any of the liars taking part in them, I think there's a strong likelihood that you might get some time off for good behaviour with the boss for that. The only person in the world with the influence to speak right now and be really listened to is Obama. Where the fuck is he? And when he did fall, because all he's done so far is put out some Twitter statement about the terrible aggression. If he wanted to like live up to the size of his fucking ego and the love of his followers, if he was to come down on the right side of this conflict and end it, right? He'll pull off the big one. Like, seriously pulled off the big one. And it'll be, with his Nobel Peace Prize, it'll be like, see, we invested in potential. But the nightmare is that that man's a buffoon who was only ever doing what he was told to do, who was just being handled and run by his wife, and you know, those who were willing to, those who were playing, you know, games, had been playing games before he arrived, and they continued, and they maybe didn't tell him everything. I don't know. We really never got to find out what that guy was about, because there's no breaking past the platitudes. And he fucking sticks to his story of the Hawaiian Kenyan stepfather, sort of strange Filipino billionaire player. You know, he kind of sticks to his, like, almost unbelievable backstory. It's like we need Barry Soetoro to stick up his hand and say, hey, you know, maybe there's a way of stopping this war, and you guys who are giving it the old sanctions until Russia does what Ukraine wants it to. I'm not willing to suffer anything for the Ukraine. Anything. Not a single penny, not a single tear or bead of sweat for the Ukraine. No. It's like they've dug their own hole. It's like they're being taken to task. They're not being invaded for no reason. For no reason. War of aggression. Peaceful. Democratic. It's like they're not words I'd have ever used to describe that country, and not words anyone sensible would have used to describe that country until war broke out or trouble started to brew. But it's like, it's getting to me now. It's like, I'm a Guardian hate reader. I'm one of the biggest Guardian hate readers in the world. And I can't bear even to read the page, the home page of that now. It's all, this has happened, and it's like, report, and it's like, well, that guy who they're all applauding, he says this has happened. It's not really happening, you know. And how easy is it to targeting civilians? It's like, well, they're using standoff weapons because you've telegraphed the fact, because that's the nature of the beast, that you've got all these really nice medium range weapons that are dangerous to us. We don't just roll in and get killed, so fuck you. We've got longer range weapons than you. Guardian portray just war atrocity, because that's what it is, atrocity. Portray it as the targeting of civilians. And you get to, Guardian, why do you talk about stopping the war in terms other than Putin being removed in a coup or some miracle happening that sees him surrender? It's like, you seem desperate for people to die so you can feel sorry for them. It's fucking sick. See, I'm like anti-war. I think I'm one of the best anti-war. So, activist, been at it for a long time. I've met many people within what would be the old anti-war movement, and it's like the old anti-war movement has gone. It got replaced with the woke, and the remnants of it remain. Me and George Galloway. I disagree with like him on about half of what he has to say. But on this topic, it's like, oh God, this guy's absolutely on the ball. He keeps his eye on this. He gets this. He's right about this, because this is part of a much longer story, a bigger game. And it's like, you follow the bigger game. You're naive about people, some people, George Galloway, but on the ball about others, as far as I'm concerned. Doesn't see the same spirit of just malignant, fucking self-serving bullshit and evil. He sees it on one side very, very clearly, but doesn't see it on the other. So it's like, to my mind, George is missing half the picture about the left, because he's of the times. It's not really his fault, he's just of the times. It's like, he doesn't stab people in the back, he kind of holds to his socialist principles. But it's like, by way of people running scams and people running lies, and what passes for a government, yeah, it's pretty good on that. Yeah, Galloway's still in the he's still anti-war. It's like Jeremy Corbyn, right? In the making, in the making him leader of the Labour Party, and then having him just show himself a cunt, right? You know, it's a funny old thing how this works. As a flat out anti-war campaigner, Jeremy Corbyn was probably the best one. But they promoted him into failure to get rid of him. It's like, what would have been the Corbyn core, or the momentum, right? That be made out of the remnant of what was the anti-war movement. How do I know that? Well, I was in the anti-war movement for a long time. Come to realise that most of the people who were in the anti-war movement too really only give a fuck about themselves. And it was a matter of they could almost be a professional anti-war. And I'm like, hang on a minute. So you are all conflict. You are all about aggravation. You are all about the game, the fight, and you're anti-war. And I found out in being an anti-war activist that most people who were in that group weren't actually equipped for conflict. They were averse to it. They were anti-war because they were conflict averse, right? So I'm anti-war because it's usually what happens when there's been just a cascade of failures as to insane decision, double down, insane decision, double down, insane decision, double down, and bring the whole nation with you. And you see signs of it. So it's like, they'll say to me, it's like, you get involved in arguments, you take people to task, you ask questions, you go, hey, hang on a minute, mate. It's like, yeah, I'm anti-war, and it's like, but you're not conflict averse. It's like, yeah, I know. It's like, I'll fight for peace. And it's like, you got to bring a fight. You've got to bring a fight. You can't be, we're conflict averse people and we think it's immoral. And it's like, well, no one's going to stop because you think killing is wrong. It's like I can usually make a case for no war. And sometimes the case I make would be the case of the Ukraine, where it's a case of the Ukraine as to where it's a matter of you ask me, and it's like there's something I do quite well, and that is judge. I can be fair. And the terms that have been offered and the moral imperative that the Russians have got to take the place, it's like that was a good deal. It's like if you listen to where the Russians are talking about it as to how they portray who they're up against, and it's like, yeah, those are all words you could, like they're saying that like gangster, junkie, Nazis, and it's like, if you only have 3 words to describe them, not bad. If you had 4 words, you could throw perverts on the end. Tales I've heard about political activists on the internet and whores and Eastern Europe. Oh. Tales I've heard about those who've been reasonably friendly in not bringing the Ukraine to people's attention as to where that place, either a terrible suspicion, is a kind of pimp gangster paradise based on how much of the new trafficking industry, the new slavery, sex slavery, how the Ukraine has become a kind of hotbed for that kind of activity in the same way that like Budapest has. going to be the internet era pimp. Be a very powerful and dangerous man with access to the second best commercial product in the world, being pussy. The first being cocaine. No one seems to care that cocaine, the guy you bought it from, you're like, hey, thanks, man. The fuck knows what company he keeps and where that money goes. Fuck knows. But in the way that those two businesses and activities go hand in hand, Europe has got a strong stink of that. As to where now it's like prostitution's on the deck, but prostitution's always online. It's like the old situation as to where you'd have it like women in the windows at brothels in Afghanistan. Well, that's the internet now. It's like, where's the hotbed of that stuff? Where's it all come from? Eastern Europe, Russia, Ukraine, Czech Republic, Romania, Hungary. Wherever it's become like it's like hotels full of girls with rooms in with webcams. Where do they have that kind of operation going on? It's like, oh, any city in Europe that's either got a porn industry, there's quite a few of them. But it's like prostitution, the porn industry, same racket. But nowadays they can make money by not having to move. The dodge money can go on the internet into Bitcoin. It's like those huge powers that be in Eastern Europe, they have a massive interest in the eyes of the West not looking too closely on this supply line that they're profiting from. It's like if you were if someone like Justin Trudeau, right? If he truly gave a fuck and wanted to virtue signal something so hard and moral, right, he'd go after MindGeek, who own Pornhub and now own most of the producers as well and sort of online distributors of pornographic material. They started off like YouTube, they stole everyone else's content, got the audience, got the name for it, and then they started to outright buy the property and buy the production companies. So you've got this multi-billion-dollar Canadian now based, it was based in the Czech Republic but they moved it, Canadian-based porn empire that doesn't actually care what the repercussions of its actions is because anyone can get hold of that material. 5-year-old kids can end up seeing porn, can't they, on the internet or phones? Happens, and they're not held accountable for any of it. And it's like you check out where your money's invested in some portfolio, and if you've got shares in MindGeek, you have got shares in Pornhub, and you're playing part in the youth of the world being, let's say, tampered with in a way that's never in history been attempted or done by any race, culture, ever. But we've done it to our kids, and no one knows what the repercussions are going to be. Nobody. It's like a mass social experimentation of the mass sexualization of the young. And the the internet's allowed that to happen. And if you wanted to put dabs on that as to, well, which country's behind this, it's a matter of all individuals do it because they enjoy it. They get into it. It's an addiction. It's the second best consumer product in the world. Sex. It's like, we take it off the table politically, or do we? That sex is a weapon of war. And it's like, who's been fighting this war? It's like, well, they've all been taking part. It only takes crooked individuals, doesn't it? It only takes members of the secret circle. It's like that. It's almost a taboo to criticise that industry. Almost a taboo to criticise it. Oh. It's like they get to mouthing off about sanctions on Russia, but certain things they're not taking down. They're not making moves to take Russia's internet down. They're not demanding, they're not saying, we need to unplug them from the internet. It's like, well, you unplug yourself because of the way the internet works. It's like, are you willing to even try that? So that really would be cutting off your nose to spite your face, wouldn't it? We're going to cut them off from the internet, then we can say anything we want about them and do whatever we want about them. And it's like, they need them to be the new COVID boogeyman that they can blame everything on, and then be seen to be fighting them, and then maybe the whole fucking cabal of them, the whole cult, wouldn't be stirring at getting their asses kicked out of office. And likely, if they got kicked out of office hard enough, these like fucking horrid people who've been put there because some guy who was really smart said, she's useless. She could be our next senator. She's got what it takes. And gets in her ear and says, you know, you're brilliant. You could be a senator. It's like, we want to back you. We want to sponsor your campaign. We want to follow your career. We think you've got what it takes. And they've just identified someone who's totally ineffectual and difficult. It's like, oh, we'll sort out everything. We'll tell you what to say. We'll get you a publicist who'll coach you and how to talk, so she gets a few Obama lessons, and next thing you know, she's running to be the Democratic senator of what? And it's like, to these guys who made this fucking monster, he said to them, why did you pick her? It's like, because she's fucking useless. We can trust her, right, not to do anything, and then to deny it when things go wrong. To just shift the blame and responsibility away, because all she's interested in is herself. So she's not asking any questions. We can get away with anything we want. She'll defend us, because to be associated with us would be the end of her career. Oh, so it's like, so you don't just buy a politician. It's like, nah, you're better off making one. You're better off giving one the start. You're better off creating one. You're better off grooming one. Then you own them. And there's been so much of that happen. All fucking corners of the old game, as to where now you've got people who are who've been in politics for 20 years, who don't know shit, who mouth off about women not being on enough money and childcare being too expensive, and they're mouthing off about that. They're mouthing off about domestic abuse, and they're mouthing off about racism, and they're veterans of politics of 20 to 25 years, and it's like the guy who picked them out in the first instance is like, I don't even have to do anything. I can just unleash it on the world, and it thinks it's doing it thinks it's doing good, and it thinks it's doing the right thing, but it's not. It's just muddying the water, and people who are up to real no good, just get on with it. It's, what's she gonna do? Nothing. What's he gonna do? Nothing. Don't buy one, make one. It doesn't seem to be so difficult if you're entrenched in the right kinds of organisation. It's like, what do you really want? It's like, we really want to get on with doing what we do, which is, in our interests. And we want to be left alone. What do you do? Oh, we tend to be like sex offenders and like, what? Yeah, swingers, people who are in a bit of a funny old clique with the old fucking secret lives of the old falling into the drink and the fucking drugs and the like, and the people we know and the people we're associated with. We don't need to be talking about none of that. We need not be getting nicked. And it's like, well, fundamentally, we're in the business of like high-end whoring and kind of pussy and making money through, leveraging people and blackmail. We call it business, but it's blackmail. Guys like that groom a politician much easier than turn out a teenage girl and make her into a prostitute. A politician would be probably 5 levels of ability lower than the pimp, than the street pimp. It's like you give them kind of people access to weak people who think they could be something, because that's everybody. So you take that pimp's eye, it's like that's what's happened to that Ocasio-Cortez, isn't it? AOC. She's been groomed to be a politician. And then just took to the level where she's probably going to stay, because she's never going to get past where she is now. And then just cut her adrift and like, right, you're on your own now. Just be the dick you are. And you're doing a job for us. Well done. You're perfect. So I see things as easy as that. It's like, pick someone out. And it's gone on too long. There's too much of it, and it's bad. It's worse than you think, because it's not just at the level of MP and things like that. I fucking despair at people on YouTube who say, we don't have to worry about Labour ever getting elected again. Say things like, oh, it'll be alright, we're just going to keep the Tories in line. It's like, are you fucking for real? And you're like, they control all the major cities in the country. They've got all the councils, they've got all the county councils, they've got all the police and crime commissioners, they're everything except central government. Like, yeah, constituencies that vote Tory mostly don't even have a council to speak of. Not a monolith that employs like 9,000 people. No, you don't have that. Something I cannot get across to the actual people who was, oh yeah, with sort of conservative kind of resurgence, right? Like, nah. It's like, you should come have a look at this place. Vici gets it now, I bet. Vici will get it now. He lives in Manchester and coming from London. As to, until you can get the social justice warriors out of your local council and be rid of Labour governance at the city level and the county level, it's like you'll never be free of leftism. And it's like they've actually got absolute power because they control all the cities. It's like the chief executive of a local council is on far more money than an MP is. You'd be expecting a salary within the range of £150,000 to £200,000 a year for being the boss of the organisation that's supposed to work for you. There's far, far better money to be made working for local authorities than there is for central government. It's like, good luck. You might say Labour will never win another general election. It's like, well, there's certain parts of this country where they're so entrenched in so many people work for them practically, or work for that side of it, the government side of it, that in a low turnout election they can win seats with just their employees voting and their families for the party that promises no cuts to public services. You vote to keep your job. Add that to the true believers, the fearful, and the ballot harvesters, and then the sort of regionalised campaign tactics, and they got stranglehold. As long as turnouts against them, turnouts are like ridiculously low, like 30%. Who the fuck are you ever supposed to get rid of them? So it's made it so, think of it this way, right? There's been many a time in my life where I could have, if I just wanted to, because I'm a working class sort of. If I had to set off in the direction I'm in, right, and a different turn of it be to step to the Labour Party and start talking their shit and their talking points and do a better Obama speech than Obama. See, it's worse than you think. I'd be a fucking superstar at Labour Party within a year. This is the voice of the people. And nothing had changed. It's just that everyone's rhetoric they'd just get more talking points. They'd just have a machine that created new things for them to say they were going to do. And they're like, "Oh, you are so clever." Well, nothing that ever changed. It's like, no, but you like a slogan machine. We like slogan machines. The way you said that, oh yeah, just get used like that. It's like, it's bad. And it's like, these guys are untouchable, It's like, if you start to sort of mount a bit of criticism of them, the next thing you know, you got the police on you. There's a few decent canaries in the coal mine for having spoken out against local councils. There's like one in every town. And it's like, if you address them directly, you go at them, the next thing you know, you find yourselves in all kinds of trouble. I'm being harassed. This person's stalking me online, as if that's even possible. Suppose it is, but how would you know? Not really a thing, is it? But that's what happened. He's stalking me online. Next thing you know, you're in trouble for one thing or another. Oh, I'm in trouble for one thing or another. It's like, it's subtle but complete. The domination by the Labour Council of this place. Subtle but complete, and the decisions they make, you can be jaw-dropping every week. Oh God, oh God. Put it to people that say you need to get rid of Rochdale Council before you want to. If you're going to, before you save the world, right? Save the world from Rochdale Council. Save the world from them first. You're like, why? So I speak from where my experience lies and reach back for my training and say, those people are a salesman's wet dream. The money in the world that spends easiest is council taxpayers' money. You go to them with any product you can sell them, they'll buy it. If it meets their needs, if it's something where they can then say to the people, aren't we clever, we just bought this, we're investing, they'll buy it off you. And if you turn up, even like with a brochure that tells them what to say, they'll definitely buy it. You're like, we got any examples of this? Yes, millions spent on machines designed to pick up chewing gum off the ground. They don't use them. They used them a few times, turned out they weren't particularly effective, and they were hilariously expensive to operate, and they didn't meet their expectations. So they just locked them in a shed and they don't use them anymore. There's probably better methods. So I imagine the guy turning up to sell them that shit. I've got just the thing for you. We call it dun dun dun. You'd invite them all to a fancy dinner, and there'd be a presentation, and then you'd start playing the music from 2001, and on a rotating stage in the middle, turn it around and there's a little cart there with all brushes on it and like a fucking kettle on the back. Dun, dun, boom, 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 dun, and all council art with laser show and lights and smoke. They'd be like mesmerised with what they're about to spend your money on. Oh, that's a good idea for the town. It's like if the best job in the world would be like, you know, like Martin Bormann, World War II, Hitler's private secretary who controlled his mail. So he was actually allowed to control Hitler's reality and knew how to break bad news. And if you couldn't get to him, you couldn't get to Hitler. To be that guy for Rochdale Council would be the doorway to earning millions in commissions. To be that guy who got to sell them tat, right? Well, that guy exists, but there's not just one of them. But there's a trade. There's actually a trade in the world that I became accustomed to. Didn't get to be a member of it. But there is a trade in business as to, we specialise in just selling to the government. Like, why? Because it's the easiest business of all. They're not spending their own money, are they? If you can fit their green agenda with the product or service that you provide, and like add value in an imaginary way that sounds good, you have a shot at selling them the product. You know, there was a guy once who made a lot of money during the Iraq War, and he tricked the military defence with an invention that he said could detect people carrying bombs. So you could set these things up at the end of a road, and if someone came through them carrying a bomb, the indicators would go off, right? And there were nothing to them. They were essentially like dowsing rods mounted on poles. There was no technology. It was a fake invention, right? And they found out it were a fake invention when it didn't fucking work and people died, right? Didn't do anything. And then they investigated it. Because this guy was able to, like, jimmy a fucking demonstration because they were a fucking dowsing rod. Yeah? They couldn't detect nothing. It was just with magnetised bits of metal. He sold thousands of them to the Ministry of Defence. Thousands of them. And when eventually they caught up with him, he went to prison. It's like, you defrauded the country, you created a fake invention to war profiteer. Yes, my suicide bomber detector. Bitch, please. Someone in the government were tricked into buying them. The person in the government who was tricked into buying them faced no fucking repercussion or penalty for it, but the guy who made the bogus invention, he went to prison. I had one contact once, and this is the thing, it's like from selling. There once upon a time where I had access to a guy who was a buyer for the United Nations. And I'm like, you're a buyer for the United Nations? It's like, yeah. And they were called, what were they called? The trading force, they were called. They were like emergency sources for the UN, and they were spending basically taxpayers and donation foundation money, and they were like, okay, we're buyers for the UN. You've got so much aid or credit available to you. You're having a catastrophe. What can we provide you? So it's their job to source things that they're being asked for by way of aid that they need quickly. And if you just so happen to know that there's a warehouse full of something somewhere and they need them, they're the best deals that you'll ever do. So there were a guy I used to do business with who'd come along, and I had it as to where he came along looking for some compact gear servers, and I wanted the business, but he wanted them a bit cheaper. He was playing games, but I'm saying to my guy who's pricing it, my server guy, I'm like, no, let him have it for the cheap. It's like, I'm not doing that deal. I only make so it goes on my figures, this. And I'm like, well, it goes on mine as well, but I want to do a deal with this guy. So my faffing idiot, someone who, not his business, my account, but you know people are. I wouldn't put my name to that. Well, okay. But I didn't get to do that deal. But the guy says, right, he says, I'll explain to you how I do things. And it's like, yeah, I'll happily give you business. You seem like a decent lad. It's like, I can trust you. It's like, you serve a guy, fuck him. It's like, but a lot of stuff I want's just off the shelf. So I'm like, all right. He says, yeah. He says, I'll send you an email out. This work's email addresses are terrible. It's like, I can collate your list and send you an email out of stuff in computer gear, IT, which is a major thing when you've got the military asking for stuff. It's always, and any kind of organisational body, it's always computers they need. It's always laptops they want. It's always, we want this, we want this, we want this. And it's like, have you got them and when can you get them there? And if you just so happen to have what they want, it's like, yeah, bang, mine, I'm having it. So you can just take the business. And it's like, I went working with my sister one time and she's got access to like lots of credit, right? And she's like a reseller, but she, in essence, she's a good reseller because she adds a layer of service that nobody else does. So she's like a functioning reseller. You can ring her up and say, I want something that does this, and she'll sell you this, 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 and this. Whereas you go on a website, you pay a bit less for it, but no one's selling it you. Right? So she's got a reselling business like that. And it's like her distribution, right? Let's call them contacts. They're the ones who keep stuff in factories. They're the ones who've got stuff in reserve abroad. They're the ones who can facilitate a big deal. I used to put it to my sister. It's like, you know, there are in your business there are places you can get leads from, as to where you could maybe do one deal a year and be on £1 million a year. And she's like, is that? So I goes and looks up my old mate who worked for the UN, and I says to him, email. You don't have any need for water purification equipment, do you? Like reverse osmosis units. And it's like, oh shit. It's like, yeah, we buy them more than anyone else. Oh, yes. It's like water purifying equipment. It's like, yeah, I know it. Reverse osmosis gear. It's like, yeah. It's like, oh yeah. It's like I can provide you a list of tenders if you want any business in that. It's got pages of this stuff. So he sent me this extremely long email with all kinds of links in it. And it were, can you get all of 250,000 like carbon filters? Like, and I put it to my sister, I'm like, if they're not familiar with this organisation and this sort of process as to where there's potential if you could just broker something as long as everything was on the level and the bills got paid and they paid you, as long as this deal's on the level and that demand is real, and these guys call themselves the United Nations, and these things are likely going to be sent to places where they've got reverse osmosis plants for water production that have come under threat or been damaged or need to be replenished, and it's like the same individual component that you sell, they use in their plants, but they just use lots of them. So it's like it's a realistic order for someone to ask for thousands of them, and it's like you tap into that business. It's somebody else's business, but it's there to be had. But those who manufacture those kind of things, General Electric, they're not strictly allowed to do that kind of business directly. Not through that third party anyway. So it's like someone's going to fulfill this order. It's like whoever's willing to take the least amount of profit for doing it is going to win it. So it'd be a matter of, if you're trading in that regard out of your living room, you've got no overheads. So you might do a £2-3 million deal where money just changed hands, and if you made like 1%, it'd be like, oh hello, because you got no overhead. So I put it to my sister, and she's like, so what good's that to it? And I'm like, oh. But it was a matter of, I haven't got that contact anymore. He's probably retired, that lad. He had a great name. He was called Chris Evans. Worked for the United Nations. He was a buyer for them. And it's like certain industries in this sort of the disaster market goes a lot further than rations and pots and pans and camping stoves and tents and that kind of shit. It goes a lot further than that. And if you see that the business opportunities go a lot further than that, you can legally get in contact with an organisation like that and be like, okay, have you been asked for anything by these Ukrainians? And they're like, yeah, we want... people have lost their phones and want to contact each other, so we're buying them phones. You don't happen to have 500 cheap phones, do you? It just so happens I do. Wallop. You don't have to have them, you just have to know where you can source them from and ship them however you need to. Always a thing with me that I'm fucking useless with money, and I never really had any. But it's when I used to work for businesses, and they had money, I used to be able to make them loads of money. It's like you have contacts who will actually, in some regards, pay you for knowing what you've got or knowing where to get things from, to find out if you can get it. And it's like, well, middleman. You'd have outrageous things used to happen with that account. I'd have it where you get a phone call off him or an email, and it would be in that strange time in the world when computers were in their infancy, and you get an order from him like, you haven't got 1,000 network cards, have you? 1,000 network cards? It's like, yeah, it's like, if you got 1,000 on shelf, I can just move for tomorrow. And it's like, where the fuck are these going? It's like, yeah, it was like, they were computerizing boats. Someone needed them because they had ships that they were upgrading, and the previous systems were all computerized but standalone, like the old Battlestar Galactica. But they could take like network cards, and then someone put them together a rudimentary network because they were just computers like any other type. My favorite, the best account I ever had as a sales guy who sold computer gear was a company called Norwegian Cruise Lines. Now they are absolutely massive a company. It's like, you go and look up who Norwegian Cruise Lines has and have a look at their fleet of cruise liners, and it's like, the system they had, the IT system they had, it's like, you wouldn't get this deal anymore because of solid state hard drives. But once upon a time, they used to, every piece of telemetry on the ship, everything was stored on DAT tapes. The last generation of data cassettes for storage, for digital storage. Yeah, they used to buy hundreds and hundreds of them off me. And we had a thing with them as to where, the way it works with these, we buy so many of them, and because we're part of like Dixon's, we've got all the buying power in the universe direct to the manufacturers of these things, and we buy them for £2.50, and you can sell them for £10 a piece. And you're going to make £7 50 profit on each one. So if you can sell a fucking 1,000 of them, you're the smartest boy in the room. Everybody gives you a massive round of applause. Once you work out that there's a big firm like that that uses them for everything and then like legally has to keep them for years and years and years and years, it's like, that's your best account. That's that piece of intelligence you've got, where you know what they're after and you know what they buy, and you keep on top of that. And you just, I used to even at one stage with that, I sussed out how many ships they had out at sea, and actually worked out how often I got these orders, and I could more or less time them. I'd be like, I should have an order coming in from the cruise ships. And then a fax come through and it'd be, ba-ding, there you go, that's how you do it. So they won't need that anymore. They can do like outrageous data solutions with solid state hard drives now. And it'd be all, you know, zipping through like satellite internet, whatever. But then when it was all analog, or the fact that the data storage was, the fucking money you could make. And then it were like, well, we need to get into our other ones, don't we? We need to suss out, because you know the guy who buys the tapes for this place, it's like, can we possibly find out who the guy is who buys the tapes for a different firm for the next one along? Because there's something I know, right? And that's the thing that makes me a trained business-to-business salesman. So it's like, I don't care who you are. I want to know who it is can make the decision to buy something from me. I don't care how big or small your company is. If I know who that guy is, I can talk to him and I can do a deal based on price and availability and whether he thinks I should have it. You compete for it. But if that guy who has to buy that shit for his job, as part of his job, if he doesn't know you exist, you're not getting an order from him. So you have to find out who he is. Done that with a few places. I once attempted to try and sneak in and get a media deal with the BBC, or try to actually put myself in the door, right? As to say, who are the buyers of the BBC for like digital media, tapes, that kind of stuff. Who buys that stuff for them? I need a name. And you're like, well, we'd sussed out that Granada Television, the money to be made out of them was in that too at the time. If you wanted to have Granada Television, as to say, these are a big account of mine. And it's like, if there were an account of mine that were active, and I found out all kinds of things, sending my little Jewish fucking super scout in the place who he'll write down how many fucking tables and chairs he sees when he goes somewhere. As to go to find that business as it stood was in most ways a facade. Granada Television, as to what its needs were technologically, gear wise, and that the only money to be made out of them was knowing that they burn their way through like 600 CDs a week. So it's like, if you wanted to do business with Granada Television, the only bit of business that was available was to sell them all them CDs every week. And it's like, what else can we compete on? And then it's a matter of, well, there is a bug on our system that allows you to ship a pallet of paper for just a standard £4.95 carriage fee. Well, I say, yeah, in reality, the carriage is like 30, 40 quid. But the system, it's like we give them money. It's like a gift. It's like on the books, it looks right and it invoices properly. But it's kind of, if you know the know with like pallets of paper, it's like if you want, you can like throw it in as a loss leader and you still get paid. The system still pays you for the pallet, but we take a loss on it. It's like as a loss leader, it's like you can become their new pallet of A4 paper supplier because you can sell that stuff cheaper than anyone. Because there's a glitch on the system that says you can ship it for £4.95 next day delivery. Really? Like, yeah, it's like put them down for that too. See, there's a lot of printers around here. It's like, what model are those? Oh, well, yeah, there is. And you find out that someone's already sussed that out. Oh, no, they're all rented and they get serviced. And yeah, it's like back in them days. There was a thing back in them days as the best business you could have. And I'll say best business, ban on, you could have, right? Was when businesses used to rent all of their photocopiers, fax machines, tills and printers. When they were more expensive and they used to rent them because they became like a disposable item. They're so, basically so, they're made so cheaply now. When they were more expensive, it's like the guy who used to, those guys used to be able to charge for photocopying it. You know, they could put a price on it, and they'd be the one who serviced it, and they'd be the one who replaced the toners, and they'd be the one who replaced the cartridges. And they're fucking happy to come round and change the cartridge for you at a moment's notice in view of the fact of how much they were making. So it's like this externalised IT thing, especially from the photocopiers. They broke into the original computerisation word processing businesses. And then they morphed in a lot of cases into computerising all of their customers. And it's like the business rental business. We put them out of business eventually when more people became affay with IT. There was more people who understood the stuff to be able to do the work as to their specialisation was no longer required, and the value of the asset value of the gear lowered as more people were buying printers and things. So it's like they phased themselves out, but as businesses, that was, you could make a staggering amount of money in equipment rental. Office equipment rental. You know, you get some business, you'd see it's just like a boring shop and there'd be a Rolls Royce parked outside of it. It's like, that's a boring shop. What's it full of? Tills. See, they'd be point of sale as well. It's like, good luck without a till. You want a till as to where it prints something out that tells you something that's fucking coherent that you can work with. You want a cash register that's decent, you're going to have to rent one, lease one. That's that business technology market in that era. It's like you had a business like that, you'd been making tremendous amount of money charging rent. It's like they were, you know, it's a private landlord. It's like the guy who owned all the photocopiers in your fucking town, he's got some money. It's like that industry I came up in. They moved in that wake and pretty much just took its business away when it was being asked to do a bit more. Hard to compete against modern point of sale systems, isn't it? It can be so much cheaper these days with scanners and stuff like that. If you want a printer, I got a Brother like AHL series laser printer, and it's like I do have to print things out from time to time, and I'm like, well, I sell them. They're not too different from the machine I used to sell, other than now they're wireless. Oh wow! And it'd be a matter of, I know that's good for like 3,000 prints. And a replacement cartridge for it is about 20 quid. And it'd be, how long will 3,000 prints last me? Like 7 or 8 years. Fine, it's worth 60 quid to me, isn't it? Brand new. See, if you think like I do, it's like you only need a black and white printer. You don't need a colour thing. You don't need a colour fan. No, that's just a complete waste of time. Don't do that. It's like that's the biggest rip-off ever. It's like per milliliter printer ink is a fucking rip-off, but per print, laser toner is cheap. I remember when a laser printer was seen as being like at the very forefront of technology when I was about 15. If you saw a laser printer in action, having only ever seen dot matrix going as to where you could never make that look good enough for it to be actually an adequate replacement for something that was typewritten. Once they got laser printers, it still doesn't look as good as if it was typed, if you ask me. There's something about it. The weight of the paper's different, you see. You use better paper for typing. The weight of paper's different. But at a time when somebody sent you something on like computerized, I got sent a letter once off Blockbuster Video that came off a dot matrix printer, and I had to practically hold it up to the light to be able to read it, and I owed them something like I think 49 pence, and they were threatening to take me to court. So I wrote back to them and enclosed the wrong letter and sent them a check for the money, and sort of made them some recommendations about how they went about doing business if they thought that was like professional, and then left me details and told them like, if you want to get yourself sorted, it's like, I don't know how you guys operate, but I'll sell you a laser printer. I'll sell you one. And it's like, if you work through an head office, it's like, give me the phone number of the person who is in charge of this kind of thing, because it's not very good form to send me an almost unreadable letter that's been dot matrix printed and threatening me with court action because I owe you 49 pence. Included, enclosed is a check for 49 pence. Blockbuster Video. There's more than one reason they went out of business. The business practice in that regard was asinine, as to where someone back in them days took the trouble to there's money to be made out of this business, right? There's all these people who owe us money, let's shake them all down and let's then threaten to take them to court, and then if they ignore us, we can charge them. We can kangaroo court these guys. We can take them to the county court. How much would that cost us? 30 quid a time, 39 quid I think it used to be. Oh, we'll threaten to do that to them all, and then, when they get a CCJ against them, they'll... you did that to your customers for owing you 49p. And it's like, you created cunt jobs. Right? That's something that happened in my time as well. The economy created cunt jobs, and I didn't want a cunt job. And then it got to the stage where I got tricked into a cunt job, and then it was a matter of, oh shit, I need to get out of here. It's a cunt job. I need my old job back. Can I come back? It turned out it was a cunt job. Whew. Whew. Wow. I was nearly being asked to lie to people in their own homes when they'd rather be doing anyone else than talking to some fucking guy from British Gas. No, not doing that. As soon as I got to a place and it's like, well, you'll be working for all these companies. British Airways, Tesco, and oh, okay, so depending on what day it is, I have to pretend to be a rep from all these different companies. Are you fucking for real? Like, this is a job? Pretending to be working for a different firm? It's like you're in essence just a salesman who wants to make a sale, and if someone comes back to you and wants to talk to you, right, about anything else other than what you're saying, your job is to humour and bullshit them and tell them anything and get rid of them. What? Yes, that's the job. Really? So cunt jobs, loads of them appeared, and they had, if you found it, you could do that, right? It's like people who've got, you don't know whether you're one of them people who can like have sex in public, you know what I mean, and maintain an erection, do you, until you actually try it. It's kind of like that. Oh, you don't know you can do it till you try it, to be a fluent fucking bullshitter from day to day in a business that would reward your dismissiveness and lack of, and creative thought in the act of doing the dishonest. So cunning. So they invented a load of cunt jobs, and then people started making big money out of it. Oh, cunt jobs. Like, what's a cunt job? Oh, how about debt recovery? What does that entail? Scaring people on the phone. Oh, scaring people on the phone. Oh yeah, it's a rag laugh. We have a rag laugh in the office. About what? Scaring people on the phone? Well, yeah. You'd have a sense of humour like a fucking abattoir. So I worked with a lad once who was a buyer. And he says, oh, I've had enough of working here, I'm moving. He says, I've got another job lined up. Who are you going working for? Carcraft. Oh, I know Carcraft, yeah, they've been around for years. I've seen them on the way up, know a lot of people who work for them. It's like, they don't pay jack shit anyone. It's like, they're a terrible firm I work for. It's like, yeah, but it's alright because I'm going working with my mate and we're just going to get stoned all day. What? Yeah. For real? Oh, yeah. What? He said, yeah, well, I like a smoke myself. It's like, I'm a bit of a stoner myself. And he says, my mate who I have a smoke with, well, he works there and he's a buyer, and it seems that my job and his job are almost identical. It's just that the names of things are a bit different, and I like cars. I know a thing or two about cars. I'll take to it like what? It's only a matter of names and numbers at the end of the day when you're in the office. So it's like, yeah, I'm going to go working for them. It's less money, but I'll just be allowed to get stoned a fuck every day. What? So, oh yeah, they're off site, they're in a different office. It's like nobody matters them as long as the work gets done. So we'll be able to have a few cans and a smoke and a good chat. Like, what? Yeah, that'd be a job. And it's like, guy I used to work with, Alan. I haven't seen Alan. Alan doesn't do social media. You know why? Because Alan's fucking smart. I used to work with a lad called Alan who ended up one time, a few times he'd won Employee of the Month, right? And he would laugh, and he would just look at you funny and say stupid things, and you knew he was joking. And he used to fuck with people, and they thought he was funny. And he was generally quite nice, but he was like the king of the wind-up. He like the day after 9/11 was the first one who shared that meme of that guy where there's a picture of him on the top of the two towers and a photoshopped plane coming at him, and it'd be, "Can anyone help? My brother's missing." He was last seen on the top of he was the first guy who sent that, right? Oh, it's like one of the original dank memes, but with the story. "Hi, my name's Alan. My brother's gone missing." That. But he threw it out as, "My brother has gone missing. Last he was seen. Help me, can someone help?" And he put it to me, it's like, "I've been employee of the month twice, and you know what? It's like, the only job I've got is when the system flags something, I have to manually invoice it. So it's like I get to see pretty much all the orders the computer doesn't, all the orders the computers hold for one reason or another. I get to see them, and sometimes there's no reason for it. The system is a bit buggy, and there's like a back door in the system where you can manually invoice something, force it through the system, so it produces the paperwork to get the system moving. So he was someone who like operated a system backdoor for invoicing, and that was his only job. And when money at the bottom line is all they're really bothered about, when push comes to shove in a business like that, at the end of the month they need to be able to show a result of how much money they've made. And him being that guy who just literally goes, return, 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 at one point made him appear to be to the management the most valuable person who worked there, because they could go and talk to him and say, "There's a lot of orders coming through," and he'd be like, "Yep, good work," and they'd be like, "Whoa," and he won employee of the month twice, and it's like it's like, dude, it's like you're worth about 20 times more than me, but I've had employee of the month twice. And there's hundreds of people live here, and everyone thinks I'm brilliant. He says, other than like email and just fun stuff around browsers on the internet, he says, I don't know fuck all about this place or how it works. And he says, I am unskilled. It's like, this is the first job I've ever had. What? He says, yeah. He says, I'm more about just dicking around with my mates at home. And it's like, it's my missus. It's like, my missus got a decent job. She got a good career. It's like, we got no kids. It's like what? It's like, yeah. He's like, totally blagged me way in here. I'd never had a job. There were a lad I worked with who blagged his way in there, saying, oh, I'm this, I'm that, I've worked here and I've done a bit of that. And it all be a work of fiction that he concocted while in prison. And he'd be like a posh boy who's gone off the rails. And he's a legitimately dangerous person. He's like Roy Keane, but like more intense. Like, he'll fucking hit you, right? And his work career as to where he's gone off the rails for being in jail for fucking fighting and being a lunatic and a fucking dangerous person. Well, he just never told them about it. He started to tell people, right, about his actual criminal past when he got his feet well and truly on the table, and they actually thought it was funny and loved him for it. As to yeah, it's like I came working here straight from prison, and I just told you a lot of lies and you believed them all, because on the surface of it you believe it because I went to all right schools. But his work history was fiction. He'd been in prison. by the time he wanted to like throw it in people's faces and have a laugh about it, he was like one of the most successful sales guys they had. A straight up lying criminal. Shameless one as well, just behaved like he could do whatever he wanted. Funny though, because that's why people like that get away with it. Odd set of values, but fundamentally a fair person. Fair. Could be reasoned with, but like if you decided he'd had enough of him rearing up and coming at you, you'd be like, oh fuck no. Saw him play football once, and it's like, oh, so he's a rugby player. You're like 5'8" of just a fucking muscle maniac who wanted to destroy you, that was super fast. Like, oh, fucking him coming at you for fighting. Whoa. He'd be fucking winning for someone now. He'll be likely at the level of something like sales director, wherever his career's taken him. And he won't be any different than what he was. He'll still be fucking what? All time bullying. He's one of them who's like tolerates you, because if he wasn't tolerating you, he'd be beating your face in, and he'd be like that with everybody. To look at you is to say, hey, what are you going to do? It's like, so most people would just submit to him. And it's like, who are these people? It's like, oh, these are professionals who like work in the out the industry, commerce. It's like a lot of these guys who are supposedly fucking, oh, I'm professional, I'm the sales director. Like, you get to know them, and it's all, hi John, oh, sit down. Oh, hey pal, I remember that time in Blackpool. Oh. Do you remember him? Remember him? That's all they are. And it's like, for people who were able to play the game of it, or face fit, that's the thing with me, face fit. To mouth fit, not pretty. Face fit. If you face fits, you can have cruised through working life at the level of sales into management. It's cruised. And in that business, them being right is to say there's no limit to how high in the world you can go as a salesman. It's true. It's like, people don't get it, but it's like political activists are all salesmen. Politicians are all salesmen. They're just selling, they're not selling something physical that can be measured. They're selling a non-tangible, an intangible. They're selling an idea. They're selling a cause. They're selling a story. But it's all selling. So it's a matter of, if you understand it's all selling, it's like you can apply your own ability to it, understanding that's what it is. So you don't have to learn to do it, you can just do it. I say I've come across people who haven't got a fucking clue how to do that, how to address a deal, close one, do a deal. Can't do it. You just roll over them and do a deal with them. Can't negotiate. But it's like the power of the people who can over those who aren't so good at it. Stretched way beyond, certain things that have got out of control, right? I'll give you a few extra things, Talk about things that have gone out of control. There's some movies that were made that were really culturally important of what happened to people at a certain time, or what they'd seen that had found its way onto the big screen, right? There's an absurdist version of it that's almost a glamorization, a modern one, as to Wolf on Wall Street. I mean, that's just downright amoral, fucking sickening criminal behaviour. All of it, what you were up to. But it's like there's previous incarnations of it as to, it's like, why is Alec Baldwin regarded as this fucking superstar actor by the whole world? And it's like he has this cameo in a movie called Glengarry Glen Ross where he turns up and he's every fucking arsehole sales manager you've ever had in your life rolled into one. Who sees the game of selling pockets of land, which is one that likely make you a lot of fucking money. Because you can sell it to people who are investing, pension funds and stuff. So it's a good pitch. They're in a good business, and it's like these properties are not selling. Nobody's made a sale, and it's a matter of the sales boss. He doesn't give a fuck that the market might be a little bit uncertain at this moment in time, and this just may not be the right time to be selling lots of this stuff because people have got other concerns. This is a game of luck as much as skill. It's like you can't be, it's like opportunity kind of knocks. You can't go out and create it. You are not a rainmaker. You can't produce magical customers that just appear. There's no genie, right? So you've got a situation in that movie where all different kinds of characters that find themselves working in a sales office, all different kinds of people. The same creature playing the same game with the same goals and a definitive pecking order between who was doing well at it and who was doing poorly and who'd win in the end. And then the boss turns up to give them a stuffing because he's saying that no one's working hard enough because there's no money coming in because nobody's making any sales. And he doesn't care that a war may have just broken out in Ukraine. He doesn't care that gas prices have started to go up. He's that sort of guy. It's like, why haven't we made any money? It's like, it's Christmas Day, nobody turned up. Well, and we blame you. Understanding that you can't use magic to bring people in from the street. You can do your best to entice them. I used to work with an Iranian guy, and he says, if you want to entice people to, we did a thing. What was it? You go to the NEC, an exhibition sort of trade fair thing we did. And he says, if you want to entice people, right, to come and talk to you and look at your stuff, and look at your stand and the like, right? He says you need chocolate and nuts. Are you fucking crazy? And he's like, yeah, I have chocolate and nuts. Just chocolate and nuts. Okay, make sure there's plenty of chocolate and nuts. So we did it, and yeah, it fucking worked. People are all coming along going, ooh, bit of chocolate, ooh, a few peanuts. Like, does that really? Yeah, it seems like it does. You can go as far as chocolate and nuts. You can't magic people turning up, spending money. But there are those bosses who sometimes think you can, and if they've got someone to blame, they do, and then it's a matter of you get the Glengarry Glen Ross speech. That's where that guy comes along, calls you a bunch of fucking losers, says you're not right for a job, says you're not making an effort, says you're not willing to go the fucking extra mile. Gives you a speech about the basic fundamentals of the job that everyone fucking knows. Reiterates it to you as to why it's your failure. When these guys were in essence just continuing to do what they'd done before that had been successful, then suddenly it's not. It's like salesmen, right? You can be a good one, right? But it's still a game of luck. If you've got one thing for sale and no one's buying it, they're not buying it. They might be tomorrow though. So while they're not buying it, you're a fucking loser, and when they are, they're going to hail you as a hero, and they're going to talk about it as being a game of skill and not luck. And then it's like the guy who looks at the figures, who just looks at the bottom line, who looks at the results, is get to where one guy makes more money than the next guy, and it's like he looks at it as to say either this guy's better than this guy. Look here, one thing leads to another. Network's better. Who knows? He's not pulling his weight, or else he's much better than this one because his figures say one thing or another, and it's like, hang on a minute, this is a game of luck, not skill. And it's like, if you've ever had bosses or management, if you've ever worked in any kind of commerce where they're saying when business is slow, they come to you and say you're not working hard enough. It's like, oh, my boss is a psychopath. Just what I need. Just what I need. My boss is a psychopath. And it's like, oh, that gives me so much hope for the future. It just makes me feel all happy and sunny and just all fucking warm inside. A psychopath. Thank you. There's been too much of that going on for too long in all walks of life, in all businesses. And then added to that in an effort to try and address what they decided that was. Well, they decided that was sexism and racism, didn't they? So they policed it like that. So then threw weapons onto the battlefield for certain people to use on each other. So it's a matter of, there's a bunch of people who are my age, and they're out there still, who have found themselves outside of the corporate structure working world, outside of it, and outside of it for a long time, with no way of getting back in. And they're still out there. It's like, they ain't letting any of us back. None of us are allowed to be forever ignored as being like malcontent, bottom feed, dissenter, burnout, whatever you want to call. But it's like, it's not a coincidence who's been turfed. Look at what YouTube is, right? He said it the other day, that Dankula, saying before his channel took off, his mum and dad were paying his bills for him. So it's like this guy was in the clutches of the fucking benefit system, hustling his way through it. So he had something to say, as he might, when George Takei's like, well, everyone can afford to pay a bit more for fuel to have a clean conscience and say no to Putin, and he's got something to say, right? Dankula. He's like, fuck you, on behalf of everyone who's ever struggled. And he's right to. So in that moment, as to where, in that moment, it's like, in what he said, he had the right message. He was like, that your message there, Danks, went further than your message has ever gone before. In that moment, he told Josh Takei to go fuck himself. And he might come back as to say, well, I was mistreated during the war. I was thrown into an internment camp. And he says, so that makes it all right for you to be a cunt. makes you more of a cunt for saying what you said. Look at what this YouTube is, right? Sargon, right? Without the career, right? Be still single, at home, on the internet, lard ass. He'd be playing Ark, fucking Fortnite. It's like, what's his abilities? What's his natural abilities point to him being something? It was being good at. What does his skill set say he could possibly do in business that might be beneficial to everyone who worked with him or for him? As to he's actually a good management type, like top management type, but not of a country, of a factory or a warehouse or a distribution centre. As to good communicator, good all-round knowledge and understanding of what's up and what's down and what's right and what's wrong. And if you applied rules to him as to say, this is what the function of this place is and this is what we expect it to do, you keep your eyes open and your wits about you, and you resolve all the little conflicts, and you listen to all the little squeaks and murmurs, and you do it every day. He'd be fantastic at that. He's born to it. He'd be a fucking natural. As to not his own business, but someone would hire him for his skill as a manager. I think so. And it's like the years where he should have been working his way up. He was on the internet, dicking about, out of work. He's like that Bostock who can knock the songs out, right? He's one of them people who can turn up anywhere with a guitar and it makes him into a source of entertainment and revenue and a good laugh, and sings a bit and has a memorable voice, knows a lot of songs, likes a laugh. As to take him and his guitar anywhere and he's worth throwing a fucking shekel at. It's like a lot of his life spent unemployed, underemployed, on the internet, dicking about. So I heard you got Dan, Sargon, Dankula. It's like shit. Where would Styx be without his ability to, use a combination of tricks to earn a living off the internet? Where would he be without his ability to broadcast? Well, my mind is he'd have likely, right, in his sort of cosmic naivety as a youngster, fallen into the hands of fucking wrong-uns. And his life would have gone down a different path as to where part of the world he lives in, the sort of poverty that he's obviously experienced, junkie maybe, gone down that path as to fuck it all. Hippie junkie sits there in silence, communing with the cosmos. There's something deeply amiss as to where people have ended up when the system's been churned. I think, we think that term of the churn, I take it from The Expanse because I like it. And it's like a churn is when something happens to you, whether it happens to everyone else as well, But when it happens to you, and an event turns life upside down, and from the next day the world's a different place and you're a different person and the rules change. As to where it's something Amos talks about, and he talks about it as if it's a fact of life, like, oh, it's just a churn. And I'm like, yeah, he's right about the churn, isn't he? He's always been right about the churn. It's like there's part of me, right, that's sat here, and it's a joke now because I'm too unfit and weak to be one of the chosen few that fight the war. Unfortunately, I'm at the peak of my skill being an armchair general. I'm more of a strategist. It's a matter of the churn. We didn't play any part in the churn that led to us all being in the wrong fucking place. Doing this, for whatever reason, for whatever end goal, for whatever profit, for whatever. It's like, to me, it's always people do YouTube for the same reason as I do. And it's like, what's that? It's like, well, to show the world you're not a fucking bum. So I'm here, me. I think things, I know things. And guess what? The world of commerce and government have really decided that they don't need my set of skills. Don't need it. So you spend your time thinking, why? You ask too many questions and you actually know too much to be of use to us. Like, what? And if I get forced to go along with things, I'll rebel against things that aren't right, or just flat out just dishonesties. I won't take part in them either. Like, no, or it'd be something more like, you'll have to pay me a lot more money for me to do that. And then that might not be enough. It's funny how it works. You get to interview someone, or someone will interview you. And with me, a lot of times, it's curiosity as to what the fuck is that, right? They don't want to give you a job. They just want to talk to you. Like, we looked at your CV and we thought, well, that seems like there's a story here. Let's ask what the story is. And that blank, that as to where it opens the door is to say, well, I've had some trouble and some clashes in my professional life, let's say, that have had lasting repercussions. And then in the world of the internet, I've gone on to do things like mouth off that, hey guys, you know what? Some women are really dangerous and insane and ruthless and super intelligent and evil. And that be a sin that the world will not forgive. Because it's a matter of, it become so dangerous to speak of things that make people say, well, oh, he could be talking about me or someone I know, and it'd be, hang on a minute. to find out something exists like that and then kind of share it as I did, because it's like a matter of I've been investigating something for a few years, and it's a topic that nobody wants to really investigate. And it'd be like the way people treat each other and what we are and aren't allowed to talk about in and amongst our own people and in amongst our friends and relatives and in and amongst our families, as to where we can't utter a word of fucking truth. Nobody's saying nothing about anything, and people can get away with what they want because it would be unseemly or could be construed as being maybe sexist to have any fucking opinion on the subject whatsoever as to. But you see what's really going on. You see what's not being. You see the dangers that are left open when everyone's covering up for you. As to, oh, well, when everyone's covering up for you, no one's looking out for you. No one's actually looking out for you. No one's trying to protect you, and everyone's trying to cover your back. And it's made a world that's really, really dangerous when things come unstuck. Because people be too busy covering up for you to recognise that there's a problem that you need to be covered up for. You find it where you get people in this world who are surrounded with people who try to look out for them in their own way, and they're totally isolated because nobody would hear it. It's that Bill Hicks one, isn't it? Where he goes in that diner and sits down and is reading a book. And waitress says, "What are you doing?" She says, "Does it look like I'm reading a book?" And she says, "Oh." Looks over to this guy. It's like we've got ourselves a reader. Certain things stay with you, kids. I had a revelation once. A revelation, like it'd be a miracle of gaining an understanding, but it was a horror. It was a terror. And just in one moment, I felt myself feel astonished in the way that someone would almost come to blows with you for criticising a celebrity that they like. I once, as to when this had been, I'd set someone else off. I got a bit of a run going at it because it struck me as being a tremendous joke. It just tickled me to death when I criticised Madonna and got an absolute, just a shuddering bollocking off a woman who works behind the bar in a pub as to say, "What have you ever done?" So wow, you've just like tried to beat me with a Madonna-shaped stick. What have you ever done in your life? And like put me in competition with Madonna. But in that moment, thought you were so much in the right and righteous as to where you could damn me as you're sexist. That's what your problem is. You're racist too, probably. The two go hand in hand. That's what that is. How dare you be critical of her in view of all she's achieved? I'm like, fuck me, someone's like gone to the mattresses for Madonna and would push you to the limit. If you wanted to press it, she would push you to the limit as to where she'd assault you and you wouldn't be allowed to hit her back. If she took a glass to you or a shovel or something, you still wouldn't be allowed to hit her back. And I'm like, yeah, it's like, I know a lot of guys have been stabbed. Funny how you put it together. It's like, yeah, girlfriend, wife stabbed me. It's like, yeah, it happens, doesn't it? But yeah, one who was one of them who can rev up over nothing, and I'm like, wow. So then I comes back from the pub and I'm talking to a lad I know who's like 25-year-old than me. And I says, it's a funny old thing that with Elvis Presley, isn't it? It's like, you love that guy. It's like, but if he was raised around here and he was like dating a 13-year-old and married a 14-year-old, it's like, you'd want him fucking dead. And he fucking reared up. Don't you ever say his name. I'm like, it's like, you fucking cunt. Don't you ever say his name again. Not round me, not ever. Fuck you. And I'm like, whoa, that works, doesn't it? It's like, this is me in like 1998, and I'm like, these people have got the shortest fuse in the universe when you poke at their imaginary fucking heroes. But, you know, it's like real things can be going on around them and they just let it slide. But if you go after their imaginary heroes, they'll see it as reason to come after you. Like old friends who never let them down. He never did anything bad to me, Elvis Presley. I love Elvis Presley. Madonna's one of my heroes. That's why I'm a single mother, and I don't need no man as long as I'm getting like 16 hours a week and working tax credits and child benefit and maintenance. I don't need no man. Jesus. It's like, that word, people can hate on something. People can hate on someone and just go for the throat because they've stepped on what could be holy ground. Like, the penalty for blasphemy in a place like Iran would only be the same penalty you'd pay, you know, if there weren't, if there was like weapons around and you were to start mouthing off about, you know, what fucking, you know, certain public figures and celebrities, what fucking utter fucking cunts they are. You know, how well would it go down if just a place that thinks itself a good place? So you go Rochdale, you go and have a drink in the Balm, right? And you go and get your hair cut. You go and get smartened up. I'll get your hair cut. Have a shave. Dress up, put some shoes on. And go down there. Get to talking to people about the subjects you can always get to talk about. Talk about football. You get on the subject of the decline of Manchester United and find yourself a Manchester United supporter and lay it down for him that every player who plays for that club is a fucking piece of shit who likely should never have been a professional in the first place because they lack the discipline to be anything but fucking bit part losers. Right? And that guy would be absolutely fucking furious at you. He'd fucking go for you. I'll get on to the other popular subject of like music. And you know, those who've passed to become legend, as to say, strange old thing, isn't it, when we get to talking about the old Me Too? It's like very few people ever really came out about David Bowie, like having sex with them when they were children. But a few did, but when they did, it was kind of what we would call romanticised and made into a positive story. as to me and David Bowie. When you find out, when you look into it a bit further, and the people who got involved start bragging and being celebrated for their child sexual antics later in life, as to that Laurie Maddox who went out with Jimmy Page when she was like 14. Well, she went out with David Bowie before him. Really? It's like, oh yeah, she's, oh no, David Bowie took my virginity when I was 13. And he'd be like, you get the subject across as to where Bowie turns out, a bad man. Someone who took advantage of people based on the position he'd found himself in. Not an entirely emotionally or mentally stable person coming from a family with like really profound histories of mental illness amongst them, where he's got a crazy mother, a crazy aunt. Himself be someone who lived with, I might be schizophrenic. I don't want to fall into being schizophrenic because then I'll be crazy as my old mother. Crazy as my old aunt. Don't want to visit that on other people, so it's like, am I schizophrenic? Be the question that he asks himself every day of his fucking life, and it's a matter of, well, people say that he changed the world for the better, wouldn't he? So, how dare you insult that great man's musical legacy? It's like when you start talking about Freddie Mercury, which is a thing I've done in the past, as to where fucking hell some people falling out with me over talking about Freddie Mercury in history, and it'd be a matter of Spread Your Wings, right? There's a song written by Freddie Mercury which is suggesting to a young listener who's down on his luck, nothing's going right for him, he's got a dead-end job and he's a young guy and he's got more potential than that, and maybe what he should do is like pack up his stuff and get on a bus and head to the big city. And he's a guy at the same time, right, who's got people driving around looking for runaways and bringing them to Freddie's house. Oh, it's like, talk about singing from the heart, and singers always sing to meet their own needs. I'm telling you, always. It's always about them. The song's always about them, and it's someone in mind, or else it's broadcast to all. But it's all broadcast to all, but what's the message? And it's like, well, David Bowie's messages were about being crazy and imaginative, a magical thinker, and his music, in that regard, could be seen as an escape from reality. Is that what people need? Is that what people want? Ignorance is bliss. Listen to the music. It's like, we're fucked. It's like, this is what you see now. It's like this doubling down to extinction sanction idea. This isn't something that's crept up on us. This is a malignant kind of crazy that's been able to just destroy anything that wasn't built to fight against it. That's just swept through everything and came to power, I say, in the first instance, in this shroud of secrecy that is the nuclear the nuclear, in the name of the fear of the nuclear. Those who've risen to power playing that game, and it's been going on now for a fucking long time, this nuclear arms race and this ability to make big empty threats, but still have the gear to do it. It's like, look at the world they created. To say they're off the table. Seen as the solution to armies. They don't need they don't have half as many soldiers as they once did. They don't need half as many soldiers. We've got nuclear weapons. We can strike out anywhere in the world. What, you would nuke someone? Well, if need be, yeah. Fuck. There's a few situations in history where a nuclear weapon might have been a good idea. There is, but it wasn't done, and now there isn't a good situation, to usual, ever. If you if you think that people have become hysterical because a war's broken out, right, and they're saying war's broken out, revenge, 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 kill the nasty COVID. On the front lines fighting COVID, I mean Putin with flamethrowers. With his toxic masculinity. How do you think, as a taste of this, it's like we've got one fucking last go at this. One last go we've got now to stop this. The hour is now fucking really late. I mean, we've been fair fuck for a while, but now the hour is late. It's like we've failed to stop these guys. We can't fail again. It's like this is the last time we get to fuck up. Like rolling atrocity, it goes one way, and seems that a lot of people have made up their minds that they like to see Ukraine fight to the last drop of Ukrainian blood and the last American-built missile. And that's horrifying to me that people go for that and cheer that on and think that that's the right. And I'm like, you've lost it. You've been demoralised. It's done. And that's how late in the game it is. And if I'm thinking of like now radical action being required, I can't be the only person thinking that. It's sewn into it as to it's like you look left to right now and you look who your allies are and you come to realise, shit, there's not so many, is there? It's like, what is this now? It's like, what games are we playing now? And it's like, right, this is where things potentially get serious. It's like, we're heading for a fucking churn here. Coming, and it's going to creep, but you'll know when it's upon you. It's like this potential for trouble in this country now. It's like you had the hardships of the price of everything going up, draconian new laws on the road, price increases, COVID nonsense, isolation, lockdowns, the green lot. Now, if the green lot get all PTSD triggered and come to realise, you know, well, we've taken our eye off the ball, that the climate wasn't the threat, we were right all along, it was the nuclear thing. If they if they fall on the right side of it, it's like they'll be protesting to bring down the government. We were Extinction Rebellion, now we're anti-war. So it's like we've got no anti-war movement, but I tell you what, the speed at which an anti-war movement with today's characters could emerge is almost, it's extreme who you might find under the same umbrella as you. As to where it's like Jeremy Corbyn found himself on the right side again. What? It's like, well, he was quite good at what he did. It's like Diane Abbott on the right side again. What? It's like, it's like she's got a long history of this kind of activism. It's like she's better at this than she is at counting and being an MP, and so she knows something about this history. She's an expert on this. It's like she's a campaigner. It's like what happened was, it's like you had Labour campaigners who stayed in the lane be dragged into the shit that they knew nothing about, and then they were destroyed there. So it's when the Labour Party put its anti-war left in control of the party, right? They destroyed it. So they destroyed the anti-war left by putting it in charge. It's like those dicks at Momentum that have become the core of the Labour Party. It's like they're people who've migrated there through various anti-war struggles, so that the basis of a lot of those people alliances are things like sympathy for Palestine and stuff like that. So in the Labour Party pushing their anti-war people to the front, they would allowed themselves to be out of the depth and fucking destroyed by the opposition. So where does that leave us? Two of our most effective anti-war campaigners have been dragged through the machine and left for dead. And now it's a joke when they might come forward and say, we might want to think seriously about what we're doing here. Diane Abbott, the woman who can't count, says we need to stop and think for a second. How funny. And that magical grandad Jeremy Corbyn's coming out saying, no, we don't want to be rash here, maybe we should just stand off and not join in the hysteria. Oh, fucking funny old magical grandad. As always, living in cloud cuckoo land.